On today's episode, we're going to do a skid loader revival on the Ford CL-20. I've been having a few issues with getting it started, keeping it started. It's a mixture of battery, carburetor, starter, plugs, and wires. So we're gonna go through all that. We're gonna get this bad boy hopefully fired up within the next day or two. It's gonna take a little bit of work, a little bit of a guessing game. But I gotta get it going, and I gotta get it going fast because we have a ton of stuff that this needs to be doing here over the next couple weeks. It's gonna have its work cut out for it, so I'm definitely relying on it. I'm relying on a non-dependable machine. This machine's been good when it runs, but it's very touchy, very finicky. We're gonna try to go through a couple maintenance issues here and try to get it back started. So a little bit of a backstory on this is, over the last 2 years, this machine has seen very little work. Kind of every couple months, mostly in the winter for moving some snow. But the starter seems to always be an issue. You know, whether it's, when it does try to start, it's very loud. It doesn't usually start right away. Not necessarily just a starter thing. That's why I said we're gonna go into the plugs and wires, etc. But it's just been very non-reliable, and I need to get it reliable. And right now it doesn't start. I went to turn it just the other day, and it tried to start for a while and then nothing. And the problem is, I go over and I touch the starter and it's hot. Starter's fried. So what I did, I jumped on the internet and I ordered myself a new, slightly smaller version starter for this thing. The starter hopefully works on here. Hopefully it's a match. It looks like it'll work. It's just slightly smaller for whatever reason. We're gonna tear into it. We're gonna do some maintenance on it, and hopefully we can get this thing back and running. Took a little bit, but I got it off. I've had this particular starter rebuilt once before, probably about 2 years ago, and it has gone out again, so I am not sure. It's just been cranking extremely hard. I should have showed you guys before I took the starter off, but it was just clicking at the very end. But over the last few months, it starts with such a hard draw. It just seemed like the starter was starting to go, or something related to the starter. So I decided to pull this off and order one off eBay, and we'll try to get that installed. Hopefully it's the correct one. Otherwise, we'll have to order another one. But these are old Olin engines. This is either a 22 horsepower or a 25 horsepower motor. One of these things is not like the other, but I don't know. I don't know if this was the correct one to have on there, to be honest with you. There's so many different styles out there, it's kind of ridiculous. But we're gonna have to, so you can maybe see there's a slight difference there. We're gonna have to take this piece off and put it on there and try to install it. I have my doubts on whether this new one will actually work, but we're gonna give it a go here and see if they're interchangeable or not. I'm guessing not, but doesn't mean we're not gonna try. All right, let's see if it even fits up in there. It's got the same, a lot of similar things here, but I just have my doubts. A little bit smaller. Gotta love these guards that they have here in place. Makes it, I wonder if I could take that off. Makes you wonder if you could take it off, but then you just see how many bolts and you're like, oh, do I want to go down that road? As you can tell, I got it just sitting in there right now. I'm going to try to put the 2 bolts in that I can put. we'll hook up the wiring and we'll see what it sounds like. But it was a little bit difficult to get in behind this shield right here. It's got to go up underneath the oil filter and tucked away behind the radiator. This starter was only held on by 2 bolts that do not appear to be original, nor are the same size. So we're gonna try to hook it up and we'll see what happens. 2 bolts, 2 wires, and probably a whole lot of disappointment. Just trying to snug up the first bolt. As you can see, this wire gets put on. Actually, excuse me, there is 3 wires. This one that goes to the battery, and then one that goes to a little bit more of the electrical system, so 3. Now's the hard part. We got the 1 bolt way tucked away where you gotta move your wrist in ways that it shouldn't move. And no light to make it a little bit easier on a guy. It's always fun. Uh-oh. Drop the bolt. Got it. For now. I don't want to jinx it, but I think I got the second bolt started. Boy, it is so, it hurts your wrist. It's so hard to get up in there. Tell you what I need to do. I need to invest into a good portable flashlight. I can't see beans. I'm using a cell phone. Wannabe mechanic. If any of you guys still run these old Omen engines, I think they were in some of the little Erics, maybe the Mustangs, obviously the Fords. If you're still running them, leave a comment below. Let me know how you like them, how it's running, what you don't like about them. This will be the, for now, it's the one and the only skid loader on the farm. So it's got a lot of work for a little bit of machine, but it can do more than you think, these little machines. I just want to take a brief break from today's video to bring you a sponsor of today's video as well as the sponsor of the channel, and that is High Seat. If you're looking for a good looking, affordable, and comfortable boots and shoes, please check out highseat.com. If you like what you see, please use discount code FAMILYFARMER for an additional 15% off at checkout. Now, back to the video. All right, now that we got that starter bolted down in there, that larger, thicker battery cable positive wire, we got to install that along with 2 smaller wires. My current problem is, maybe you can see the end of this cable right here. It's all kind of bent away, not in a nice tight circle to get it to go into that copper piece right there. Well, I think you guys might be able to tell what I'm going to be doing now. I got to cut that off, and it's too bushy on the end to have even a chance to go into that piece. So there we are. Got to cut off. Okay, I got the positive battery cable attached to the starting solenoid as well as the battery. All we have to do is tighten it down. We got the other 2 wires that are going to the starter hooked up, and we'll crank it over here in a minute and hope for the best. Well, everything looks to be a go. We're gonna turn the key a little bit. We're gonna let the fuel pump kick on for at least a few seconds, and then we're gonna crank. Like I said, this is a smaller starter than the one that I pulled off of here. Very similar to design, just a little more compact, and I'm not sure that it's gonna engage with the flywheel the way it should, but there's only one way to find out. So let's do it. I almost forgot something. Now we're ready. cranking, not starting. I've probably had this carburetor off half a dozen times over the last year, so I don't know, maybe I need a new fuel line filter or something. I don't use it all that often. It's going to get more use over the next year or so. When it does run, it runs well. It's kind of a sensitive machine. Not the most reliable. Got it off. Zenith carburetor. Pretty flooded, so it'd be interesting to see taking this apart if a float's stuck or something, but I had to call in the professional. Woo. Got the carb cleaned up and now we're gonna install it. Get this fuel line hooked up and then we should be done with the carburetor. Okay, we have one more thing that we're going to try today. I went to the local auto parts store, hoping that they would have maybe some wires and some spark plugs. Turns out they do not have the wires, but they do have 2 spark plugs. So I am gonna replace the spark plugs. We'll put the wire back on and we'll crank it over. These spark plugs were relatively cheap. They were less than $4 a piece. And I'm not too familiar with this history from before when we purchased this, but just being so uncertain about when the last time maybe the spark plugs or wires were changed, decided to just go ahead and try to eliminate it. The second spark plug is on. I don't know, what do you guys think? So just to recap what we did so far, we took the carburetor off, we cleaned up the carburetor, we charged up the battery, we replaced the starter in its entirety, swapped out the old one in with a new one, slightly smaller, but it seems to do the job. We also replaced the spark plugs, and we checked on changing the wires, but they didn't have them in stock at the local auto parts store, so we kind of skipped that. We also cleaned up the air filter. So we did a decent amount of maintenance work on it. Now we're gonna do about take 67 of trying to get it started. I will say I'm very happy with how that ended up. Anytime a new beginning farmer is able to work on his own stuff, save money on the labor costs, and get something back up and running, it's a good day and it feels good doing it. There are 2 additional things that I want to do here that aren't quite up to snuff. The first one being this front light does not turn on. The back one does, but the front one does not. So I'm gonna have to follow that wire, see what's going on there. Maybe it's just a bad light, I don't know. The second is when I took the spark plug wire off, I'm having a heck of a time getting it back in to twisting it tight. So I'm actually gonna have to take the exhaust manifold partially off, raise that up so I can get in there and spin that back on. But I think I'm gonna do that right now. It is safe to say that we have revived the Ford CL-20 skid loader. If you guys enjoyed this episode, check out all our prior episodes and subscribe to the channel to see future episodes. Our farming journey is only getting started, so please follow along. In the meantime, I hope you guys keep on farming, and we'll see you next time.